What is up, everybody? Thank you guys for being here with Unfiltered Brew, where we have Jay Edgar here with us today, and this is episode 13 of Unfiltered Brew. Jay Edgar, how are we doing today? By the way,
I'm doing well. I know this is I said on Contemporary earlier today that this has been actually a long time in the works, but
has been.
you smoked your computer and
I did.
then we've had to wait for a few
I
weeks.
did. It was a mess. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like that was painful. And I know you're a car guy. I figured I feel like finding a car was easier than me finding a PC.
Oh, it depends on where you're going from, but yeah, I mean I've driven some crap before, and I would not recommend streaming from a PC at the quality of some of the cars I've driven
There
before.
you go. There you go.
But I also know how to fix them.
What is your favorite car?
Uh, in high school, I gave myself a graduation present, and it was a
Oh,
1978 Pontiac Firebird with an Oldsmobile 455 rocket.
whoa, that sounds fancy. I'm not gonna lie. That sounds fancy. I know nothing about
It was
cars.
fast. It was fast in a straight line.
What color?
Midnight blue with a red bird on the hood.
Ooh, that's cool. That's a clean look. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Every car, I feel like car colors today. I love the matte, but I was told that a matte finish on a car like it scratches very easily. Is that true?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Okay, it does. So that sucks because it's so pretty.
I
That
feel,
does.
by the way, like if I'm going to be on this show, I should probably put the book up that fell down earlier.
What
Because
fell?
we're doing video games, and
Oh yeah.
I've got The Legend of Zelda Hyrule Historia as part of my
What?
background.
I love that. I love that. I remember we were talking, you are a Zelda guy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, no, it's not Zelda that's doing it. I'm actually joining the army of modern consoles coming up here in a couple weeks.
That's so
I'm
cool.
actually going to buy. I haven't bought a console since a GameCube, and I bought that off Craigslist for $20.
Oh yeah, GameCube was legit though. That was like the best. I'm not gonna lie. I
And I'm
always.
buying a Switch.
Oh, you're buying a Switch? That's awesome. Oh yeah, because that's right, Zelda is on there. Do you have any interest in anything else, or that's where you're gonna? That's the
Well, I
route you
want to
take.
play the newer Pokemon games. I love Pokemon,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the actual reason I'm getting is because of the re-release of Mario RPG that's coming out to it in November.
Yes, I did hear about that. That's gonna be yeah. You need to switch for that. That is so. I can't believe that the last one you bought was a GameCube. That's
For
amazing though.
for $20 off Craigslist, and it had a copy of Soul Calibur inside of it when I got it home.
What? That's an extra steal. I bet you he didn't even know.
He did,
That's an extra. That's like, yeah, that's an amazing deal right there. I'm not gonna lie. Um,
and I bought that to play my Metroid Prime too.
See, it works. GameCube, I remember I got it for as a birthday gift, and it was my favorite I think it's so well built. I love the size, the weight, and it had the best games on there. I mean, Mario Kart 4, that specifically was such an upgrade from the Super Nintendo Mario Kart. Oh gosh, that one was like, if you picked Bowser or Donkey Kong, you would not move in the Super Nintendo Mario Kart. It's like those two characters. Well, Yoshi was always the best for me or Koopa because it was the fastest. But like, I mean, Rainbow Road would give you a migraine back then with how bad it looked,
Mhm.
you know? But now, I mean, I loved it on GameCube. It was just so much fun. The four people you get up. I mean, yeah, because I always rave about it. And what I loved about the Wii when it first came out is that you could have the GameCube and you plug in your controllers and all that. But then they switched it, I think, with the new modern version of the Wii. They didn't have that. Sad. Extra
No,
sad.
that's lame.
I know, right? Because I think backwards compatibility is like very much needed. And I think that a lot of consoles lack that today. Right? Right?
Yeah, that's one of the things I was looking at too, is because I didn't know if I was gonna. I was always a PlayStation person on the main
Yeah,
consoles,
right.
and when I went to PS2, which is the other latest console that I have, when I started
Love
looking at
it.
PS4, PS5, I'm like, is this backwards compatible? Can I still play
It's
Final
not.
Fantasy X on it? It's
No.
not.
No. But PS5, you can like transfer over on something like your PS4 progress. It's not really backwards compatible. Yeah. That's the one thing PlayStation really lacks that Xbox always had an edge on, for sure. But then, the backwards compatibility keeps getting more limited and limited. It's just like we want to play older games on newer consoles, because not everyone's got their stuff plugged in ready to go. We just need it, especially because like my original Xbox has broken down. I have to actually take it apart and fix the laser in it because that thing breaks on me all the time. So it's like I'm kind of stuck. And my Xbox 360, I don't even know where it's at, but I have my original Xbox here. But it's like if it was just backwards compatible, it'd be so much easier. You know? It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of the laser, my GameCube actually, and I have it. I just had it when I just moved at the beginning of this year
Gotcha.
across the state,
Uh-huh.
and I went to go set up my GameCube right before I moved. I'm like, I want to go play. What did I want to play? Twilight Princess is what I wanted to play on there, and
Okay.
it the laser's out of my GameCube too.
Yeah, see? It's like you gotta go on eBay, take it apart, all that. What is up, Snow? Hello? Welcome in. Yeah, the laser on things is always the first thing to go, I feel like. And you always see the YouTube tutorials that are always like, oh, just put some rubbing alcohol on it. Like, no, that's just not a fix. It's not a fix. You actually have to replace these parts. But luckily, we have eBay, and you only spent $20. So I figured a little, $10 more, if that, for a laser won't be too bad. Today, guys, we have nothing but controversy for you guys. Last week we talked about bestiality being in Baldur's Gate 3, and that kind of raised this question about let's go through over the years and talk about what biggest controversies have happened in gaming. And believe me, there are plenty, some that I can't even believe that ever a game was made for it. But I want to start off with talking about World of Warcraft. Because this is such a huge game that people play. I am not a World of Warcraft player. I don't know if you are,
I've
Edgar.
always been tangentially interested, but I've never actually played. I never
Okay.
have PC that could handle it up until like really recently when everyone stopped playing it.
When exactly. I actually knew somebody in college who lived in the dorms, and she lived like very close to me, but we always saw. Um, she dropped out of college because she spent so much time playing World of Warcraft. She let her studies pass by and she did not pass. She failed. She got kicked out. Like, it's crazy because every day I pass by that window and I just see this girl playing World of Warcraft, which brings us to the first one. And the reason why is people have actually died while playing marathon sessions of World of War because they forget to eat, drink, and they stop moving. And also, children have died, and I also blame the parents for this, who played the game so much they didn't take care of themselves and actually died playing this game. And that is the controversy. We have 44% of people addicted, claim that they're addicted to World of Warcraft, and 8.5 million players are active as of now, which means 3.74 million are addicted, which is kind of crazy to think that that many people are addicted that they would die for this game. Now, I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Like, do you think that's worth some controversy?
Well, I mean, it was such a big deal when it first came out and the addiction of it.
Right.
South Park even covered that.
They did. I do remember that actually specific episode. Mm-hmm.
And everybody got extremely fat except for Cartman, who got extremely, extremely fat.
That was actually the good. South Park's great. Yeah, it definitely. And what's crazy is like the parents are that are allowing their children to just like die because you're not paying attention to how many hours they're putting in. Like we're all gamers here. We love to put in our hours, and there are sometimes I even forget like, oh, did I eat or drink? But then I remind myself but I'm not gonna die for a game. I'm talking about maybe 5 hours, 6 hours gone by. Like, did I eat or drink? But like to think of like 72 hours plus where you're just glued, not sleeping. I mean, and the main reason is, their missions are basically impossible to complete. And it's that strive for completion, I think, that creates this addiction to it. It's sickening to me. Where are the parents is my question.
Well, like with me, mine is Fallout. I can tell you
Yeah,
that right off the bat. The one that if I were to do a 72-hour marathon session, which I can't even imagine trying to do,
right.
but if I were to do something like that, it would be on Fallout. When I first got this pair of headphones, actually, or this
Mm-hmm.
predecessor, this is my second set of this pair of headphones. I put them on and I was playing Fallout New Vegas.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking to myself, man, my headphones are starting to get really uncomfortable right now. And I think I didn't spend enough on them.
Uh-huh.
And it's really weird because you would think that headphones would stay comfortable for more
Right.
than, and then I looked over the clock and realized it had been 8.5 hours.
I mean, we've all been there. That's a for sure. But like to let your kid like not come out of their room, like, are they good? Like, you might want to check in on them.
Yeah.
Like, it's
It's
crazy. It's
that,
crazy.
that Sid Meier's Pirates was another one too, where it's just like I sit down to play for 20 minutes and I look at the clock and 4 hours have passed.
I mean, that's a good time though. That's how you know it's a good game. And I have no problem.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's great if you love World of Warcraft, play it. But like, don't forget to take care of yourself. Like,
Hmm.
but that's not the game's fault, right? So I don't know why people got up in arms about this. Like, it's crazy, but the parents need to be on top of this, and also the people who are playing got to be on top of it. I mean, we are responsible what we put in our bodies. We're responsible for taking care of ourselves. So it's like, you have to be self-aware. So I don't think that because a lot of media outlets at this time, of course, were attacking World of Warcraft, but it's not the game's fault. So in my eyes, this controversy kind of falls on parenting or the individual. Would you agree with that?
Oh, it's definitely the individual. People don't
Yeah,
want to take responsibility. That's the problem.
true.
But most everything does come down to the individual themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like that to me wasn't a gaming. It's just like I saw it and it's like, okay, you can't blame the game for this. But the next game that we have to talk about was a really hot one. I remember it's been years in the making about this game, by the way, called 6 Days in Fallujah. For those that don't know, Fallujah is a city in Iraq, and the game is based on the Second Battle of Fallujah, which took place in 2004 during the Iraqi War. On top of the military deaths, the battle is known for heavy civilian death toll. And the controversy lies with many were worried that it was glorifying the killing of Arabs. And it's made by Highwire and Atomic Games. And the PC version will launch in early access, and it was June of this year it had early access. And to get it, it's $40, but the full game is to be released for console and PC in 2024, sometime there.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, like I don't think the reason I don't think this is a controversy, I think it's a great depiction of like what has happened. At least that's my understanding. I have not played it, so I cannot speak on it. But I do think like Fallujah was a really heavy war spot. Like, I don't know. I just think a game's a game. I think if you think about everything being glorified, then that means like no games would be released. I mean, look at Grand Theft Auto then. Well, I mean, a game like that could not cease to exist. I mean, it's a war game, basically. And I like a realistic war game. And if that's what it's bringing, I don't think it's going to be as bad as the controversy says. But I want to hear your opinion.
So I this is my first time hearing about this game,
Okay.
but I'm looking at this and I brought up the Wikipedia for it, and
Yeah.
while you were explaining it too, I was actually surprised that this is something that's not, or it got released in early access last month
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yep.
But like when I was hearing the controversy of you're going out and killing Arabs and it's glorifying killing Arabs, I was thinking maybe this is something that started in 2009 or something that was released in 2009. No, this
Yeah.
is like
Recent.
this year
Yeah.
where we're over a decade removed
Exactly.
from this particular battle, and all I can think about when I look at this is, I mean, how many iterations of running down through downtown Berlin and Heidelberg and
Exactly.
insert the latest installment of Call of Duty here
Yep.
have we had to endure?
Exactly.
And
I,
then modern warfare brought it up even into like we've been talking and doing movies
yeah. Yeah.
about Vietnam since, well, Vietnam was still going on.
Exactly. I mean, these are things that happen. Then how come it's okay for movies? This is what really bothers me. It's okay for movies to glorify all of this, but when it comes to gaming, people are always up in arms about it. It's no different. It is no different. I mean, it's supposed to be a realistic game, then I'm all for it. I mean, it's not going to glorify anything because then, like you said, you wouldn't play Call of Duty, Wolfenstein, or whatever game that was. I never played that game, but yeah, right? It's about killing Nazis, I believe. Pretty
Well, I
sure.
mean, and I know you're a Rainbow Six person,
Yeah,
but and me having had read Rainbow Six all the way
me
back when I
too.
was probably too young to have read it.
I have read all those. Yes, yes, yes. All Tom Clancy books I read. Love him.
Um, but I mean, that at least is going by a fictitious conflict at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what the actual premise is for the video games, but I know that everything that happened in the Clancy universe basically split into an alternate timeline in 1982,
Yes.
and everything is it's original. It's they're not going through. So some of the controversy I can see with 6 Days in Fallujah is the fact that they're basing it on something
Yeah.
that did actually happen. But again, we go back to Call of Duty Vietnam or whatever the hell is going on with
Right.
that.
Right. I mean, it's true. I could tell. Yeah, now that you mentioned, yeah, that's a really good point that you mentioned that it is based on like an actual war zone. But there was a game I played on the PS3, and it was one of my favorites. It was called Spec Ops. It wasn't a really well-known
Okay.
game, but basically, you go into war, and it's just like you and your four fellow, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, in your, there's a word for that, your battalion, and
Okay.
you go into the Middle East, but the thing is, like, some of these things that happened, if like the scene ended in white, it was it was fantasy, like you were dead the whole time, and the things that ended in black means it was actual battle that happened. So it's like piecing together this puzzle. But the thing is, you killed a whole town of children, innocent people with white phosphorus. That was one of the missions. Okay? And how come
That's
that?
brutal.
And that is brutal. It was to show the effects and like, did it happen? Did it not? I mean, it was a really beautifully well made game, like story wise, to know like what happened, what didn't. Your character is dead. Like, it's pretty interesting. But that to me is like terrible compared to what's happening with this game.
Hmm.
You know? I think that it's always pick and choose. I think just the title alone, people didn't really care what it was. But because we were in Fallujah, that they just like lost their shit, basically.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, the thing is, they're continuing with this game. So, I mean, it is out. I will buy it, see what it is. But, like, how many things have been made? And, I mean, like you said, how many wars have actually happened? And they still make games about it. It's just what
Yeah.
it is, right? I mean, it's
Well,
content.
and didn't like Full Metal Jacket come out while we were still in Vietnam?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty
Haven't
sure.
seen I haven't seen a lot of movies, so I can't confirm that. But I'm pretty
I
sure
think you're
some of
right on that.
Stanley Kubrick stuff.
Yep. I mean, how many things about the Twin Towers, about them collapsing, have been in movies? You know? I mean, what is it? Die Hard, actually, the cover of that film shows the Twin Towers burning down. So, like, you know, do we cancel Die Hard after what happened with 9/11? Like,
I'll cancel it before I've seen it.
cancel. Oh, you've never seen Die Hard? Oh, it's a
I've
great
only
one.
seen like five
It's
movies in my life.
really. Is there a reason for that? Or
Well, number one, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but number two, it's just
okay,
it's hard for me to block out as busy as I've always
yeah,
been 2 hours to sit down and watch a movie.
it's true.
Whereas, like with TV shows and streaming TV shows, I can
That's
okay, here's a
easier.
half hour. Okay, now I can go do something
That's
else.
true. That's a good point. Die Hard's a great movie. I mean, it's like top notch. It's a really good. But my point is like then you people just like need to like I don't think it's glorifying because then how many Call of Duties like you can actually dress as anybody, you know, depending on what operator you want to be comes from different parts of the world and then the whole goal is to shoot each other. So you guys, if you're going to cancel something, and I always say this to people that are the Karens and canceling, you better keep it consistent. But the thing is they never are. They never are. But I will be checking this game out. The next one we have is like we talked about earlier, Grand Theft Auto 3. And this was released in 2001, literally a month after 9/11. And people were saying that the game was inspired by 9/11, and the controversy actually made the game so popular that it went on to be the best-selling PS2 games of all time. And as a GTA fan, I love GTA 3. Um, it can't be inspired by 9/11 if it was already released a month after because it takes forever to make a game. So that means they
Yeah,
would have had this in the work way prior. So, what do you think? Controversy? Yes or no?
I guess I don't know necessarily what the controversy is because I played more Vice City than three.
Vice. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So
So
what I
basic.
was looking at was happening in Miami.
Okay.
So I don't know the storyline of 3. I know that it's Liberty City, which is supposed to be a bastardized version of New York City.
Yes, it is. And that part of it, and GTA 3 was like officially the first GTA that wasn't the because the first two were actually on PC and it was a bird's eye view. That's how it used to be
Yep.
played. So this was like the first like open world, the actual introduction to what would be Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
So, hookers killing them, fighting, guns, all of that. Everyone thought, well, 9/11, it's inspired and you're promoting this kind of behavior, which I don't agree with, but I don't think it's controversial. Sure, it's a little tasteless to put it out a month after they could have delayed it, I guess, but is it worth the controversy? I personally don't think so. Um, but I want to hear what you guys think.
Well, I mean, when I'm looking, because I'm reading a bit about this too,
Yeah.
it looks like the controversy for this was the fact that it was delayed because they wanted to pull references to the
Yes.
Twin Towers.
Which, yeah, I don't remember ever seeing, because like you said, it's a fake version of New York. But I guess, yeah, that would make sense. They had it, they pulled it. I mean, there's not much more they can do. The game's already made, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you expect? Like, it's like you can't predict what's gonna happen, especially if the game, because like I don't think people think it's like filming a movie, right? It's gonna be. I mean, and filming a movie is time consuming, but double that for a game, especially at that time. So, I mean, you got to write it. You got to, who's going to voice act? Who's going to create the graphic? Like, there's so much that goes into it. People don't realize that. I just don't think it was worth the controversy. I mean, I think there was so much more going on right after 9/11, and to focus on a video game was not
Hmm.
needed, in my opinion.
Oh, it's what's interested to that is I we talked about this a little bit off air, but
Yeah.
I've got a good 10 years on you.
Yeah.
9/11 happened during my senior year of high school during homecoming week on top of it
Oof.
on pajama day.
Pajama day.
So
Wow.
we're all sitting out here in our pajamas watching the glued to the news that's
Yeah.
being put on in every room, and like we saw it in, you
Yeah.
were probably about 8 at the time, so
Yeah.
it maybe affected you a little bit differently at the time,
It
but
did.
it's
Yeah. I
like
was,
I can
yeah.
remember skylines, and you've probably seen it in movies more or less, but I can remember skyline. We talked about Die Hard, which I've never seen,
Yeah.
of having the twin towers in things. What was it, last year I sat down, and when Ninja Turtles was still on Netflix, I watched the original
Uh-huh.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the intro of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and said, "Man, how old is this movie?"
Yeah. I mean, right? Because that's everyone's first thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, they were a huge part of New York. And I was in second grade when it happened, and I really didn't understand like what was going on. They put the news on, but I wasn't like grasping like what was happening. And I just, when I played these games, I never thought like, wow, geez, this definitely gives me 9/11 vibes. Like, no, no. And I was playing Grand Theft Auto way too early when I definitely should not have been. But that was like, I was already into the series like when that had to come out. And I just don't think, I think everyone loves to hate on video games. It's their favorite form of media to hate on.
Oh, that's been going on way longer than
Yeah.
you've probably even been alive.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
I remember the controversy over the original Mortal Kombat. I'm that old.
okay, you gotta tell us.
When
We'll make that what was the controversy at the time?
the controversy, it was the graphicness of it, and especially Mortal Kombat 2 was the one that really took it because they were using real actors and some claymation
Okay.
to put that out onto the 16-bit screen. But even going out to the original one, where like you could literally grab somebody by the head and pull their spine out and see the spine.
Yeah. I love Mortal Kombat.
I remember being in the lunch line in second grade and having one of my classmates talk about how realistic it was. You could actually see the heart beating. I think that was for Mortal Kombat 2, honestly.
Oh. That's I'm you know what? I do have that one. And I think Mortal Kombat, it was one of the most awesome games ever. Like love the fact that you can like rip a spine out, and it was like, so the finishing moves were just amazing, and they still are.
Yeah.
They honestly
I
still are.
I don't think I've played a Mortal Kombat since 2,
Oh,
which by the way, I just played on an arcade cart not an arcade cabinet. Yeah, an arcade cabinet 3 weeks ago.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Was it every
There's
like
a
nostalgia?
oh, it was. There's an arcade bar in a small town outside of Atlanta, and I
Oh,
was with Katie Zed
uh-huh.
um 3 weeks ago, and she said, "Hey, there's a video game bar that we want to go to," and we went.
That's
And they had
awesome.
all the old cabinets. They had, I think, a couple newer ones, but they had all the old cabinets in there.
That
I
is
played
awesome.
Turtles in Time. I played the other Turtles Beat 'em Up. I played
Yeah.
Mario on a cabinet,
Love
Donkey
that.
Kong on a cabinet.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. And like, see, what are the controversy? Like Donkey Kong, the poor monkeys. Like soon, you know that people are gonna start complaining about it. Like this is not an accurate depiction of monkeys or something. They're gonna say something. They're gonna say something. Or like, I don't know. I'm surprised that Mario and Luigi hasn't offended the Italians. But if we know anything about the Italians, is they don't get offended by any unless you call an Italian a Sicilian. I know that that is a hot topic there, but you don't do that.
I mean,
You
typically, if an Italian gets offended by something or somebody, you're wearing concrete shoes by the end of the day.
True. It's a fact. I actually, that's what I love about the Italians. They don't take it from anybody. Love it. I absolutely respect it and I love it. But yeah, like I just don't think GTA was a problem. But I mean, like, think about it. This, like I said, the third was like the first like open world one, and it launched. Look at the career that Rockstar has done with Grand Theft Auto, one of the best selling games of all time. And it's full of crime, criminal activities and stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it's full of it, but you just I think we just grew up in a time where we know what's fake and what's not. And like no one had to teach me that things that I was doing is in a video game. You can't do that in real life. It's just something like common sense. And I feel like the people complaining today just like either lack it or they're not grasping it or what the issue is. But you have to understand like what is done in a game is not indicative of like real life. Like, do we need to teach this? Like, I don't know. I feel like it was just embedded in us, you know?
Well,
Would you?
I mean, that goes on to controversy in just about, I think, every direction that you can take it.
True.
Think about the Looney Tunes for
Okay.
just a second and all the controversy that comes out of there. Now, when I was 5 or 6
Uh-huh.
and wasn't completely soft in the brain, I didn't have to be told
Yeah.
that I wasn't supposed to take an oversized wooden mallet and bash my sister over the head with it.
There you go. Yeah.
But there have actually been complaints out there of parents saying that we can't let our kids watch it because it's so violent, and they might actually go back and emulate that. Like,
It's
who is
not.
emulating this?
Who is? That's what I have to know. It's like we needed to have like a brain study, like neurology. I can't even pronounce that word, but you know, neurological research on this. It's crazy to me to think that people are gonna mimic what they see. It's like, you know, when you ever see those tags on blow dryers or something and it says like don't put in water, and it's like
Yeah,
what a stupid tag, but that just shows you that someone actually did.
yeah.
Isn't that?
Well, it's like with Fallout too. Like, I do understand, and I love Fallout. I joke sometimes when we talk because I do news coverage,
Yeah. Right.
and we are unfortunately, and I don't want to bring too much news into this, but
Yeah.
we are unfortunately edging closer and closer to nuclear war right now.
Right.
And when I talk about it, I always joke and I say, when the bombs fall, I hope I get ghoulified so I live forever and walk around saying, "Hey, smooth skin" to
Yeah.
everybody else that I see that managed to stay in their human form.
That's
But
funny.
I understand fully well that if there was a nuclear war, and I probably wouldn't die from the fallout because I live in relatively rural Wisconsin, but the radiation poisoning would probably make me crap myself from dysentery. And I
Oh
understand
yeah.
that.
Yeah, we would be obliterated. it's but like who wants to live in a world that's basically all nuked and starting over? That sounds terrible than just to go out. It really does.
I do.
You think? Oh, that's too
Think
much.
of all the free land.
I could be free in heaven, you know, living it up, you know. But I think it's too much. I always say if there was like a zombie apocalypse, I'm not sitting there. That's just too much. You can't even trust people, let alone the zombies. It'd be too much. So you would hope just to be infected at that point and just call it a day. But yeah, I don't think. Yeah, like I said, there is that lack of common sense. I don't know if parents just have to be more proactive, but I think it's just odd that there's this big disconnect of a generational gap here that like We weren't having like we no one told us not to do bad things. We just knew it and like today. So that's something to look at. But gaming is not a part of that. Like don't bring gaming into this. Parents got to be more active. But the next one we're going to talk about here was probably the biggest controversy. It actually is the most controversial video game level in history, which was the no Russian mission in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And for those that have never played it or have not seen it, the mission, no Russian, you play as an army ranger who worked undercover for the CIA as part of a Russian terrorist organization. The mission's goal was to shoot up an international airport in Moscow with the protagonist, Makarov, and his goons. It was a false flag operation, so Makarov did tell you, he says, remember, no Russian, indicating that his team is to only speak English during this operation. But then at the very end, after you've chosen to shoot up the airport, Makarov shoots your character, telling him that he knew of his identity and the purpose of this was to pin this crime on the U.S. to justify war. I played it. Yeah, it was a mission. Like you got to be there at this time. They have now pulled it from their newer version of the game, but you did have a warning and you could choose to skip the mission. Or if you were in the airport, you actually didn't have to shoot anybody. But I think everybody did because we didn't know it at the time. Like, what do you think about that? There's a lot to
I
take in there.
think part of the reason that it got taken in and taken down is probably because it was way too on the nose,
Yeah,
honestly.
probably. I mean,
But we can't let them know that people are actually pulling false flags.
yeah, I mean that is a point to be made for sure. I played it and I thought like, oh my God, I remember saying like sorry as I was just blasting him. It was like, I was like, so sorry, I gotta do this, like, sorry. And then at the end to get shot, it was not right. Like, I just did all of that. It was crazy. It was intense for sure. But we moved on. Like I said, you could choose to skip the mission. I can understand why that would be controversial. But there were
So
options.
is Modern Warfare
Welcome to the Big Bitty Committee.
is that like open world where you just go through and merc and take up missions, or
No, there's a campaign. So back then their campaigns were awesome and you had a campaign to beat and then you have multiplayer which is like teams on teams shooting each other. That's multiplayer. But for the
well, I guess
campaign, it was a story-driven game.
because as a Fallout player again, and I keep going back to that there, and I do think like number one, Grand Theft Auto was definitely a predecessor to modern Fallout
Right. Oh, that's
because
a
they
good
were the
point.
ones that introduced the open world aspect of everything. But like it depends on where you go, but you can just go down and full out skip missions just by not going and interacting with that NPC. But I've never played a Call of Duty game, so I guess I don't know how that works.
So no other mission has ever been like this. Honestly, so like this was something like you could have just walked through. I'm sure the end game would have still been the same. Like we didn't know, but there was it said it's gonna be graphic. Like do you want to skip the mission? There it warned you, and you chose yes or no. It was, I feel like if it was made today, it could have been more graphically terrible, but because the graphics were so bad back then that I feel like they got away with it. There's just no way they would have gone away with it. With the graphics today, it might look really realistic, especially with how much shootings we've had since then. But I mean, an airport, it was post 9/11. So I just don't think an airport would be a place you could, especially with it being post 9/11.
Yeah.
Like there's no way
Which
you'd get away with this. I
you know
mean,
what's funny going back to the graphic stuff
yeah,
for just a sec because you brought that up
yeah,
and we talked about like the original graphics
yeah,
on Mortal Kombat
yeah.
and how graphic that was and how parents were scared of that and everything else. Um, what's funny about that is now because I sometimes watch video game lore on YouTube
Uh-huh.
when I'm looking for background music, and I know that there are a couple channels like Fallout again. There are a couple channels that I watch that are doing that kind of lore, where I know the one guy will actually say, "Hey, I have to turn off the bloody mess perk and maybe not show this particular scene while I'm coming here talking about my lore because otherwise my video will get age restricted." And I think there
Uh,
actually is market for non-graphic violence on video games, so they
They
don't get age
do.
restricted on YouTube.
They
Yeah.
do have that, which is a really good point you make, which is like, I think that's great. I think it's great. If you want to use it, go for it. But then it just kind of shows like y'all can't complain about it because they're doing the best they can. Like
Hmm.
blood is going to be in a game, but back then it really did look like it just looked so bad, you know? But we didn't know it was bad at the time. It was great. But like I think there's no Russian. I played it. It was the most memorable mission for me to play. And I think Modern Warfare 2 was the best Call of Duty game hands down ever made. And today more players are playing that. People are going back to those lobbies to kind of relive the best Call of Duty days. I just again knew that this was not something you can do or get away with, and just it was just like crazy that even back then I was like, this is nuts they put it in here, but we just did it and moved on. Now it's like no need to dwell on it, no need to do anything. Like you can't do this clearly, especially in a post 9/11 world.
Yeah.
Right? Brandon, thank you so much for the bit. And oh, your mom hated Twisted Metal because all the songs are Rob Zombie. That man knows how to make a horror movie. Okay?
Yeah, that he does.
He knows how to he
And
knows what he's doing.
we were talking about this off mic, and in 1990, no, it was 2000 when I brought home the original Diablo for the first time. I was playing it on the family computer on top of it,
Oh yeah, there
and
you
my
go.
mom came in and was like, "Okay, well, how realistic is this that I have to be worried?" Meanwhile, I'm 16.
Yeah, that's nothing. You're fine. And look, you ended up fine. You
Well,
know?
the jury's still out on that.
No, you turned out great. Trust me, gaming and like it really teaches you so many things. I can't wait to talk about this in a future episode on like what gaming actually does teach you. But I want to say before we wrap up on the Modern Warfare, do you think that this was like the start of desensitizing that does happen in video games?
No, I don't. I think the start of that again went to the Looney Tunes. I
Oh,
don't
see.
think that it desensitizes people as much as you think it
Yeah,
would,
I
as it
agree.
does.
I agree, because like I said, I felt bad the whole time. I was just like, sorry. So- Gotta finish the game, so sorry. Like, you just do it, but like, you know?
I mean, some of the arguments that we hear, even like going back to the Parkland shooting back in 2018,
Yeah,
and one of the first things that popped up was people, oddly enough, on the left who
yeah.
used to do the criticizing of this, where they were like, "Oh, well, the Nicholas Cruz was desensitized by violent video games and this and that and the next thing." I said, "Really, Tipper Gore? You're going to
Yeah.
speak through these kids again?"
You know what? They
And
did.
Tipper Gore was a big. Speaking of controversy, too, Tipper Gore was a big leader in the fact that we even have these controversies to talk about.
It's true, but Republicans also play a huge part in trying to ban video games all the time. They try doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like I think they're just older that they just don't get it. I think that just shows with age. But they did the same thing with the was it the Sandy Hook? They also said that he was playing too much Call of Duty. Like, please don't blame Call of Duty for someone's sick actions.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, they did the same thing with Led Zeppelin in 1977 too.
It's some right. There's always something to complain about, and Eminem always got roasted about his lyrics. It's just like if you can't exactly what Brandon said. He said I was running people over as a kid with GTA, and I never wanted to do an IRL. Exactly. This is why we have video games is to escape reality. We do the most ridiculous thing in video game because we cannot do that in real life, and if you were, there's consequences to your actions. It's crazy to me that people are like, you know what? Yes, beating someone with the baseball bat in Grand Theft Auto. I feel like I'm gonna go do that. Like it's like crazy to me. But that kind of goes to show the mental illness problem we do have that in this country that people cannot differentiate the difference. And that's the touchy topic there. But you cannot play the game. You can't blame the fork for eating so much food. Now you gain weight. You can't blame McDonald's. That was another thing that people love to blame McDonald's. Like, you just don't have to go to McDonald's. Like, you are in charge. But like, J. Edgar, you did mention earlier about the responsibility. Just no one wants to take it, and everyone does want to point the blame.
In different ways too. Like the
Yeah.
parent. Oh, I didn't have to be a parent because Rockstar Games put out this horribly violent video game, or Bethesda, or Activision for Call of Duty? Yes.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay. Yes. Activision.
Yeah, it's their fault. It's always their fault, but it's like, you know what? This is what I'm saying. Like, violence is one thing, but like when I was mentioning the bestiality in Baldur's Gate, like, go blame the developers for that one. That is actually, you can go blame them for that. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like the violence, though. There's violence everywhere in the streets, regardless of violence being in video games. They actually think like what, that people aren't gonna have danger in our streets in public today. We have that with or without video games. It's a very real thing. And yeah, Brandon, people do need to be less bitchy. I think it was one of the most memorable games. Now, if someone's out there saying that like No Russian's their favorite mission of all time, like you might want to keep your eye on them. Be nice to those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's another thing. If someone's just saying it's their favorite. It wasn't my favorite, but it was my most memorable mission for sure. For sure. And the next one I'm going to talk about, which is the huge controversy. I don't know if you've heard about The Last of Us Part 2, the leaks that came out prior to this game being released. I don't know if you were made privy to this information or not. Before I go
I've
ahead.
heard of this before, but I've never played the original Last of Us because my rig couldn't handle it at the time.
Okay, definitely. It's seriously a masterpiece. Masterpiece. The first one. I did not play number 2. So basically there was leaks that were revealed prior to the game being released that the controversy was some people claimed that it was because it was inclusion of LGBT characters, and then the other reasons range from disappointment over the story. So it was split. People were complaining no matter what. And the reason I want to really hone in on this is from my experience, it has nothing to do with characters and their sexuality or whatever. The reason was if the storyline got ruined. There's spoilers here. You guys, if you watch the show and don't play the game, there are spoilers for this segment here. But I'll tell you, right, we have Abby that ends up killing Joel. That was my main issue. I don't care if Abby was a creature. I don't care if Abby was girl, guy, whatever. It was the killing of Joel that pissed everybody off, I would say. And that doesn't speak on for everybody, but like I would say like 85% of people. It's their prerogative. They can do whatever they want. But please, I mean, I just don't even want sex in games. Like as a gamer, I just don't. I always say this. I don't want a love story. I don't want any of that in my game. I just want a game.
We were talking about that the other. That was a few months ago.
It was for about like you said, Final Fantasy needs it. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
You said right. Okay, fine. Now you want to, but like when the whole thing becomes like forced love, it's just such a turnoff for me. Like this is like not what I want. GTA.
StarCraft is a great. Oh yeah, StarCraft GTA have to bang a hooker for health.
There you
That's
go.
a love story in and of itself.
It's terrible. Like that shouldn't be a game for me. It's just like I don't want it. I don't even think of like who's thinking of genitalia in game. Like that's a whole nother conversation to be had at that point. It's just like I want to play as something like you're just a character. Like I don't need a background story. I don't need sexuality. I don't care. I just want to play a game with a good story. Like this is not Love Island. I don't care. I'm not here to find love in a virtual game.
I have an interesting side story to this. You remember the Zelda 2: A Link to the Past for the original NES?
Oh yeah.
So, like when you were going through the towns in Zelda 2,
Okay.
you know, typically if you needed to advance the story, you followed the old woman at the house and it cut to the inside of the house.
Right.
Because the wizard was in the basement when you followed the old woman. But in every town, there was a young woman who restored your health, and you met up with her. She said, "Come with me, I'll restore your health." And then you went into the house and it didn't cut, and then all of a sudden your health was restored.
Huh.
I think that's where GTA got the idea from.
That actually makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. That actually makes a lot of sense.
In this house?
See, it's like, but like, I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it at all. It's for cookies. There you go.
Oh, it's her cookie, all right.
Nothing rated R. Yeah, like I don't. It's like I just don't get it. Like I honestly don't think games do need it. Like I said, I just when the moment I sense any kind of love story, I roll my eyes. I just want to play a damn video game. I want to escape. I'm not here. This is not eHarmony. I'm not here for any of this. I am not interested. I feel the same way about movies and stuff. Like, I don't care about a love story. I want, like, well, I watch a lot of horror movies, so luckily there isn't much love in there. But, you know, it just.
I have to push back on that a little bit. Like, Final Fantasy X, it needed to be in there because it gave the two protagonists the attachment that they needed to go through and kill the gods. By the way, there is a YouTube video
Okay.
where a guy spends 2.5 hours explaining why you kill gods
Oh my
in
God.
JRPGs. Like, he goes through the entire history of Japanese culture
Wow.
to get you there, and it's an amazing explanation, actually.
Well, that, I mean.
I learned a lot from that video.
Wow. That actually is crazy. That's in-depth. That's in-depth. That might be actually.
I think it was 1.5. I don't think it was 2.5. No, I think it was 1.5. But still.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's actually interesting. See, that someone explaining it. Okay, fine. I'll give you Final Fantasy, but it didn't feel forced, right?
No, again, it was
organic.
You needed to have the attachment to drive the protagonist to finish the game in the way that the story was written to finish it.
Got you. Well, speaking of love, why don't you hear love from this group who actually in 2002, a local arcade in San Diego removed the machine after members of the local youth advocacy coalition complained that the background of a certain game, which you'll be shocked to what it hear, and selected songs contain images that could promote drug and alcohol abuse. And the game that really had to be removed, Dance Dance Revolution 2000.
I'm not surprised.
This is insanity. Like, this is now insane. Okay? This is horrendous. Like, it's just, I'm a loss for words. When is Dance Dance Revolution a controversy? Huh? A game that gets you.
Pop music has had that controversy. Pop music has had that controversy for years.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about controversy? Like, look at Cardi B and stuff. Fine, that makes total sense, right?
Which in a new DDR, that would probably be on the table. Would be Cardi B.
Totally.
Most likely.
I don't think you could.
Because it's popular.
It's popular.
It's something that people know.
Dance Dance Revolution, like this game, first of all, I love Dance Dance Revolution. It was just like you had to be there. Loved it. I owned the mat at home. I was like really good at it. Never did I think, geez, these, fun images in the back. I kind of feel like, dropping some acid now. Like, what? And of course, a group has nothing better to do.
You got any?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Wait. What? I was like, did you go somewhere? I was like, what? Did you go somewhere? Can you believe this? Like, this is absolutely outrageous. Like, the controversy to me lies in the controversy. Like, this is crazy. Yeah. And it was replaced. Dance Dance Revolution did replace their images. And that was made by Konami. But what Konami also created was, like, terrible. And this I can actually understand. They made a Saw game in 2009. It was listed in 2009 as the top 10 most controversial games. And for those that don't know Saw, okay, it's a great movie, by the way. But basically,
never seen it.
You never seen it. Okay, so I don't know if you know the premise, but it's about people getting tortured. Like usually there's there's a guy kidnaps them. They wake up. They're like in a torture chamber and they have to do like crazy things to try to survive. But if they fail, they die in crazy ways. Mainly 90% of each movie, they all just die a horrendous death. But the premise was it was bad people get kidnapped and do these things. Like they all have done something bad. That's what they all have in common. It was great. But like as a game, I can understand that being too much. Like just sitting there and torturing people. That's like not really great. It's one thing to watch it, but now you're like getting into like the actual, you're taking on this character, torturing him. I can see where the issue is. Would you agree?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like that I can totally understand. But Dance Dance Revolution, you guys, be better. Like, you should have never made a Saw game. It worked as a movie because horror movies really make it. But as a horror game, it's not really horror. Now it's just a torture chamber. It just doesn't work in the same way. It needed to be adaptive if they were going to do that. But to just sit there and torture people, it just doesn't, it's not going to sit right, even for me. But yeah, another game that really kind of shocked me that I learned about was JFK Reloaded. It was made by Traffic Games in 2004, where the player is given the role of Lee Harvey Oswald as he assassinates the U.S. President John F. Kennedy.
Gee, I wonder why that's a
I
controversy.
wonder why that's a controversy. It's kind of disgusting that things like this have even been made. Like, even the idea of it is terrible. Let alone they went and they did the extra step and they created it. That's nuts. I mean, did you know about this?
Not until you said something about
Not
it.
unless okay. It's like disgusting that even like would even be a game, because especially it's not even, it's just the idea of it. Like, when something just doesn't sound good, yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I mean, that's definitely one of them. But the next one is actually one of the craziest ones I've read, which is a game for the PC made by Illusionsoft. Came out in 2006, Rape Lay. And it's literally about, you take on a role who stalks and assaults a mother and her 2 underage daughters. And this was released, so the controversy was raised in the UK in the Parliament, where they withdrew the distribution of it eventually after the pressure. But it's disgusting that it wasn't until they got backlash that they pulled it. Like, they sat there and really thought it was a good idea to create a game about raping women, underage above all else. Like, what world are we living? This was 2006. Like, what was going on in 2006? Like, what were we doing?
Was there a shortage of wood chippers or something?
Yeah, it must have been. It must have been, actually. I'm trying to think. 2006. Woof. Yeah. I mean, what? This had they were like, just think that a group of people came together and was like, it'd be a really awesome game to put out. Yeah. A game where we're just raping women. Doesn't that sound fun? Like, what? How disgusting is that? That's probably the worst one I think I've read.
I guess they really got to go back and appeal to that incel audience somewhere. They're in their basement not doing anything else.
Yeah, like, it's kind of crazy. And that a group of, like you said, men, like, I wouldn't even call them men, like, terrible boys created this. Like, the ones that are, like, always overlooked by society, that they get angry about. They hate women because nobody wants to date them. That's just kind of what I envision that created this. That's how I'm seeing it. That's how I'm seeing it. It's just disgusting that this came out. And, like, they're like, yeah, we'll take it out now that we've gotten backlash. Like, what? Of course you're going to get it. And the last thing that was controversial that I do want to talk about was a game that I love so much. And it was Ghost Recon Wildlands. And the reason why this was controversial, and Ubisoft did not change it, thankfully, didn't cave to any of this, was like, the game, right, takes place in Bolivia, where it's a huge cartel that you try to take down, and they're in charge of, like, sending so much of cocaine and things like that to the U.S. And Bolivia got upset because they're like, this doesn't happen. However, I looked into Bolivia, and Bolivia is the only place, really, that the coca plant is still legal. So how are they going to tell us that this doesn't happen in Bolivia?
This happens.
Yeah, this happens. Like, when you think of Colombia, and Colombia is actually gorgeous. And I know it's like, people tell me tourist-wise, it's not the best place to go. But, like, I think Colombia, I've done my research on it. It's so pretty. Sadly, it is overridden by cartels. And when you think of Colombia, are you going to think about the beautiful under cave? It's a cave, but it's a church, and it's all illuminated blue. It's a salt cave. It's beautiful. Are you going to think about that? Or you're going to think about Pablo Escobar, right? I mean, it's just what it is. But, like, it's sad. But I actually think of coffee. As a coffee drinker, I do think of coffee first. But, of course, like, a majority of people, they're like, oh, cartel. You think of Mexico, it's a cartel. It's sad. But that is just the reality of it. And Bolivia really was like, got their panties up in a wad with that one and said, like, this is not a depiction of it. Like, we don't want you using our, place and saying this is what it looks like. But if the plant is legal, I think it's a safe bet to say that it's fine. it's the
I mean,
game.
why are people walking around Amsterdam?
Why exactly? You're in
Coming from the US.
exactly. Yeah, they're gonna say the red light, even though we all know about the red light district. So it's like you can't tell me that that's not there. You just can't. These are things that we know. But that game is amazing, and I mean, at the end of the game, it really just showed rebels overthrowing the cartel and fixing it. So it was
So
actually a really good premise.
is this a retelling, a more modern retelling of which one was that? I read this far into the series. Clear and Present Danger.
I actually never played, so I can't speak, but I can.
Well, you said you loved the game. Clear and Present Danger, the book, not the. I don't know if
Oh,
there's a game.
sorry.
Clear and
No,
Present
no, no.
Danger.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, for sorry. I was thinking of video games. I was like, yeah, I never played. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, it is. I mean, it is like I can actually see that. I wouldn't. They actually used a lot of their books. Not just Tom Clancy, but like in general, Ubisoft does pull from literature for their games. So I can actually totally see that. A lot of people like to put their twist on it and create like a fresh idea. But the controversy was like, this is not really Bolivia. And of course, everyone's going to think that this is Bolivia. To be honest, I actually knew nothing about Bolivia prior. So if anything, it made me want to do research, and I didn't make an assumption because it's a video game. And of course, video games are not always 100% accurate. Of course, it's dramatized for the effect for us to get, into a game. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So I mean, I don't see anything being a problem there. But like yeah, I'm trying to think of like what else we have. The last controversy before we start wrapping up here. But like, did you know that Hogwarts Legacy, like the new in 2023 had controversy? It's because of J.K. Rowling's view. That was another thing, but it received criticism for its alleged anti-Semitic themes involving goblins. Let that sink in.
Well, and again, this is another franchise that has been mired in controversy since the day that the Sorcerer's Stone came out in the libraries for the first time.
What was the issue there? I have not read Harry. I don't watch Harry Potter.
Paganism.
Paganism.
And the fact that they're going to teach the kids how to be witches and
I was going to say, aren't they all
magic.
wizards? Yeah. So the whole thing could be
Yeah.
seen that. Like, they should have worried about that, the number one. Right? I mean, it's the true thing. It's like witchery. Yeah, you're not supposed to get into. I wouldn't personally ever get into that because, like, you don't want to draw in anything from the other side. Steer clear. Steer clear of all that.
I was a teenager in the late 90s into the early 2000s. Like every third edgy girl said that she practiced Wiccan.
Oh gosh. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. The
Even in the small town.
Yeah, that's where it happens. Like you are in Ohio. Okay, Devil in Ohio was literally about a show about a satanic cult. Really good show on Netflix actually. But look into it. Watch it. It's literally about a small town cult that is satanic. It's a good show. It was a good show. But like, yeah, I don't know why people think like what the hell they expected with Hogwarts and stuff. Nothing about it is real. But why are we caring about the feelings of goblins? Hello? They're not real? Like, why do we care? That's just weird. Like, did we think about the aliens' point of view when they made E.T.? Like, this is the same thing. It's like, look how ridiculous that sounds. It's ridiculous. I don't know how it's anti-Semitic, first of all, because I don't play or watch or read Harry Potter, but, like, it's goblins. Like, it's goblins.
Well, goblins typically have a certain shape of their nose, and being into the not right wing myself, but being adjacent to it, I do know some very, very anti-Semitic people.
Okay, yeah,
who
no,
have
that
used
exists.
that word too.
Oh, like
To
goblin?
describe them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know. See, I have no idea. See, people like that, there is things like this do happen, and like that's not to say it doesn't. That's not what we're saying here. I did not know that, so maybe that's what they're referring to. Yeah, I just think that like so many of these controversies we talked about today, I mean the biggest one, right, is like a rape game, Saw, JFK, not a good idea. But everything we've talked about is like gaming has to pool like it's different than movies because you're just watching somebody do something. But in a video game, you are taking on these characters and you are in control and you're doing these things. So you cannot blame, like I said, you can't blame this third party, like what we're watching, what we're doing. You just gotta be responsible, and that's just kind of what we're getting at the end of the point. Like, you want controversy. I think the only reason why we have controversy today is because this line of realism, or like line of what they're putting in our games, keep getting pushed and pushed, like bestiality. Like, we keep pushing this line, and now it's time to hold the games accountable for that. Like, back then, it's like just because there's some blood doesn't mean anything. But now it's like we're getting these ideas, these societal norms that they're trying to normalize on us, that they want to keep pushing and pushing, that it's creating a new paradigm of it, accepting that it shouldn't be accepted. You know? That makes sense?
Yeah. But in closing to that too, and with me being around internet culture for as long as I have
Yeah.
and really diving into it, doing a news show. One thing that I can say is, number one, there are always going to be edgelords out there
Yeah.
who are going to do something, make something, create something, or write something with the express intent to figure out whether or not they can get away with it. Like
Right. That's a
rape
good
play.
point.
I'm going to say right off the bat that was somebody who was doing that just to see if he could get away with it, just to see if he could get it
Good
onto the
point.
market.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, the fact of the matter is that we have so many controversies like this, whether real or made up, is the fact that if you are going out looking for something to be offended by, 99 times out of 100, you're going to find it.
True. That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. I mean, I just think like, and if people don't want, I mean, like I said, you don't have to, if you get offended, like, you don't have to play these things, but it's not fair to tell everyone what we should be offended by. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to eat McDonald's because it's literally poison, but I'm not going to tell you not to eat it because you have every right to go eat it. If you want it, that's your prerogative. That's it. Like, but now
I mean,
it's just like controlling, like, I'm not going to, so you should also not do it.
and it brings me back to the wise words of one Sean Corey Carter.
Okay, what do you say?
If you don't like the lyrics, you can fast forward.
That's it. You don't have to listen. Like, I don't like Cardi B. I think, okay, but do I listen to her? No. No. You just don't have to partake in it. It's kind of crazy. Like, I think she's a disgusting role model, not to mention she did take advantage of men. But if you want to listen to Cardi B, hey, she's out there. Go for it. Her stuff's out there. It's there. Like, you cannot tell. So with gaming, stop telling us that it's going to make you aggressive. Stop telling us that it needs to be banned. Politicians need to shut up on that. They have no idea what they're talking about. And how come it's okay for them to show all these bad, the news, I always hate the news. I don't watch the news. It's all bad news. They never tell us anything good because they create this idea that society is just so bland and bleak and there's no hope. They sell you on this idea of that. But gaming, what it does, it does give you hope. It gives you this premise of like this completing a story. You feel accomplished at the end, and it gives you this feeling of like, yeah, I just did something good. It's good. We're going to talk more about this next week, and I would love to have you on if you're wanting to come back about the good things that video games do. And it's time that we start recognizing it as, stop pointing the fingers at this specific form of art compared to others, because it does so much good for people. And but if you're one of those World of Warcraft players that are like killing yourselves for it, then maybe you guys should take a good look at your life.
Go touch a girl.
Yeah, seriously, go
Ask for
touch.
permission first, but
We'll end it. I have a quote to end every stream I do, taken from a video game. That's how we end these streams. And this comes from Red Dead Redemption. It's hilarious. There are two ways of arguing with a woman, and neither one works. And we're going to end it there. J. Edgar, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you, and where can we watch Contemporary?
you can find Contemporary on most platforms, YouTube and Twitch, with the extension of JEdgar101.
Yes.
Rumble as well, or you can find me on social media, Instagram and Twitter, at both extensions are JEdgar102. because some girl in Australia already had the 101 on both platforms.
That sucks. I did tag him on Twitter and Instagram. So if you guys are more active, you can just look at the tag that he is in there and go give him a follow. Thank you guys so much for joining today. It was awesome. Jagger, so awesome talking to you. I'm going to have you back on for sure. And guys, we'll see you back here next Thursday. Take care.